Well, I am so excited that all of you are here. As a therapist, I think part of my favorite part of presenting at any kind of conference is just like being able to see your face and interact with you and feel your energy. And so, yeah, this is just, I think it's probably a little bit strange for everybody, but we're just going to go with it. And please feel free to know at any point, like message me through the message board. I also, at the end, we're going to have a Q&A. So keep your questions or your curiosities for that time. But this is Look Both Ways, Coming Out Guide. My name is Candice Czubernat, and I'm the founder of the Christian Closet. We do online counseling and coaching. So my team and I, we meet with people actually from all over the world for counseling and coaching for LGBTQ Christians. It is a dream job, dream work. We all feel so lucky. Every single one of us identifies somewhere on the LGBTQ spectrum. And so that means we've all had our own journeys and we all have come from Christian backgrounds. And so to travel all those painful, difficult spaces ourselves, and then get to journey with other people through coming out and trying to see if they're gay or how to date for the first time, all kinds of things. It's incredibly exciting. So we're very lucky. Let's see, I'm gonna move my slide. I have been married to my wife, Crystal, for 7 years. We've been together for 15. So I always like to say, like, if you know anyone who is queer and married, they usually have the amount of years that they've been together and then the amount of years that they've been married. And there's usually a pretty big difference, especially for those of us who are over the age of like 35. Marriage wasn't legal. But we have Deacon and Dylan, our boy-girl twins, and Crystal carried them. So this is us when we voted, and this is us this year at Halloween. We love holidays. Crystal loves doing themes for our holiday, for our Halloween. So this is our attempt at a theme this year. Notice the orange is the new black gear for Crystal and I. Okay. So the very first thing that I want you to know, and if you don't take away anything else from today, is that like your process is your process. No one else is living inside of you. It can be so easy, especially with social media, to compare ourselves to others who are currently coming out or who've just come out. It just is not helpful, and it's not fair, because every single one of us is different. We have different families. We were raised in a different space and places. And so I want you to know that I respect where you're at. If you are filled with fear and you're timid, or if you're in the middle of coming out, or you just came out, wherever you are at in your process and however you feel, I respect where you're at. I also like to tell and remind people that I do this for a living. I'm a therapist who literally helps people come out. Okay, so this is my job, and I didn't come out until my I was 33 and had just become a therapist. So I know that feeling of feeling way behind your community, way behind your friends. Most of my friends were married and having children and buying homes, and I still wasn't out. So I remember and know that feeling of, man, I'm behind the curve. I'm behind everyone. There is plenty of time to catch up and to have the life that you want. So this Christmas, I don't know if you guys were as excited as I was, but it felt like, compared to normal, so many queer movies that came out. There was Prom, which wasn't a Christmas movie, but bawled my eyes out. If you haven't seen it, go see it. There was the Hallmark gay movie. So it was super exciting to have some queer representation this holiday season. And one of the movies was called Holiday Season. No, The Happiest Season. That's what it was called, The Happiest Season. And I know a lot of people who did not like it. I personally loved it. I completely identified with so many of the stories that were like represented, the messiness of it, the feeling and the experience of being chosen but not being chosen. So anyways, I want to start off by playing a clip from the movie. So, whoops, here we go.
I don't think that she loves me as much as I thought she did.
Hey, Harper not coming out to her parents has nothing to do with you.
How could it not?
Remind me, what did your parents say when you told them you were gay?
That they loved and supported me.
That's amazing. My dad kicked me out of the house and didn't talk to me for 13 years after I told him. Everybody's story is different. There's your version, and my version, and everything in between. But the one thing that all of those stories have in common is that moment right before you say those words, when your heart is racing and you don't know what's coming next. That moment's really terrifying. And then once you say those words, you can't unsay them. A chapter has ended and a new one's begun, and you have to be ready for that. Can't do it for anyone else. Just because Harper isn't ready, it doesn't mean she never will be. And it doesn't mean she doesn't love you.
I want to be with someone who is ready.
Oh my gosh, you guys. I could cry right now. It's so good. That scene got me. It's such a good scene. So there are three main things that when I saw this scene, I just thought, yes, someone else's journey is not about you. So I don't know about you. I'm guessing that there are at least a few of you who are in relationships with people who are at a different place in their coming out process as you are. When I met Crystal, I had already struggled for so many years. Crystal's my wife. When I met her, I had struggled for so many years. And so falling in love with her, I felt almost ready to come out. But when she fell in love with me, she had never even thought about another woman. And so she was so far behind in the process. And for years, I internalized that as personal. Even though she told me that it wasn't about me, it felt like it was about me. It felt like if I was enough, if I could love her enough, if I was good enough, if that she would finally come out. But the thing is that truly it is not about you being enough. It is not about you, about your partner even loving you enough. That it is really about their journey. And I know that there would have been so much suffering that I didn't have to endure if I would have been able to really get that and let go of it. One other thing is that we all share the moment before. I love how he describes that moment before. When I think about it, it feels like being on the edge of like I think about like cliff diving. If you know me at all, you will know I would never dive off of a cliff. I would never jump off a cliff. That's not me. I'm always one of those people who's like got 911 dialed in my phone, ready for someone to get hurt diving off the cliff. And it feels like that the moment before you're going to come out. It feels like you're getting messages in your brain. Your brain is sending you messages saying, do not do this. You are going to get hurt. You are going to die. And you have to overcome those feelings and actually run and jump off in order to do that. And that moment, those moments, we all can connect to. Every single one of us knows what that feels like. I remember coming out to my dad. I think when I think about all the people I have come out to, that beating of your heart, your legs shaking, your mouth gets dry. I think about my dad. It was so physical, the experience of anxiety before I came out to him. He was the hardest person for me to come out to. He was the one I waited the longest for. And I remember I had actually come to this point where I thought, I am going to actually be relieved if my dad dies so that I can finally be myself. And realizing that I would feel relieved if my dad died just so I could finally be myself, it motivated me to come out. I thought I would rather have him reject me than have to bear relief when my dad passed away. And it wasn't even like he was sick or anything, but I know it sounds kind of morbid. So I flew down to where they were living in San Diego. I was up in Seattle and I waited all weekend long, right? Every moment of the weekend, it was like, is now the moment? No, now that's not the moment. Like I waited and I waited until the car ride on the way to the airport. And it was like, okay, it's now or never. And I remember just sort of kind of saying these words of like, I have something to tell you. I'm in love with Crystal and I like girls. I think there can be a lot of pressure to have the right words. Like, am I gay? Am I bi? Am I queer? What am I like? What do I identify as? What's the perfect way I'm going to say this? It's great to have been thoughtful about what you want to say, but also sometimes all you can do is just get out whatever it is that you can get out. And for me in that moment, jumping off the cliff, all I could get out was like, I'm in love with Crystal and I like girls. And it was the most shocking experience of my life because if I was a betting person, I would have bet that he was going to pull over the car and ask me to get out. He's so committed to his faith. He's, tithes and involved in church and has a daily quiet time. He's just like the most Christian, godly dude you've ever met. And instead of pulling over the car like I thought he was going to say and asking me to get out, he said that he loved me. And he let me know that he knows my heart for God and that he trusts my heart for God. And told me that he was happy for me. It really was shocking and beautiful and life-changing. But that moment before, when you experience that, I want you to remember that you are surrounded by thousands upon thousands upon thousands of other people who have felt that exact feeling that you have felt. And then back to something that I mentioned in the very beginning, and that is no two people have the same exact story. So we might have that piece in common, but from that moment forward, just like this clip says, you are going into an unknown space in your life. And in order to be able to find the courage to come out, you have to get really comfortable with not knowing what's next. And that can take time and work and effort in therapy or with a spiritual director or a pastor or a friend to get used to that unknownness of what's next. Because that, for each one of us, is as varied as there are people in the world. Okay. So, what's the best way to actually come out? I created this little graph here. So we've got coming out in a letter, coming out face to face, posting on social media, and letting people just guess, which I've definitely done all of these and more. And so this graph is actually supposed to be a little bit funny or sarcastic, because as much as we each want to say, like, there is not one right way to come out, I know that there is pressure, to do it face to face, and that no matter where you live or what your situation is, the best way to do it is face to face. And what I want you to hear me say is that you have already done enough hard work, and that you have already suffered enough. And so when you think about the way you want to come out, the biggest question I want you to ask yourself is, what is the most kind, easiest way for you to do it? And as much as there's this idea that how we come out will impact your family's reaction, you will have an impact, but you cannot control it. And so even when you consider how you want to come out, whether it's face-to-face or posting on social media or coming out in a letter, there's going to be an impact in your choice, but it really will not be as big as we like to imagine it's going to be. And so if it feels like the most kind, gentle, generous thing for you to write your family a letter, that is exactly the way that you should do it. You should not force yourself through some kind of face-to-face sit down if that feels like the hardest way to do it. You deserve to have a little bit of space to find a gentle way through coming out. Okay, so this is Crystal and I up at a lake about an hour away from our home that we like to go to in the summertime. And this is us at last Pride. I think we're looking pretty gay. We've got all of our gay gear on. I've got a tutu on down that you can't see. That is rainbow. We're on a boat. We have flags everywhere. Pretty gay. So it was actually really fun because there was no parades, of course, because of COVID this year. This lake happened to have its first ever Pride Parade, boat parade. And so we participated in it, and it was actually really emotional to be out there among other boats and be cheering for one another, even though it was a small group of us. But the reason why I share this photo is because mere months before this photo was taken, we were back up at this lake, and there is a hotel that sometimes we like to just sort of sneak in and use the pool. And so we were using the pool, and Crystal and I take turns. We are 6-year-old twins. Sometimes we take turns watching them, which if you have kids is a great idea because one of you gets a break. So Crystal went into the spa and was just sort of relaxing. And it was my turn with Deacon and Dylan. And this lady comes up and sits next to me on a lounge chair. And she says, "Oh, is your husband at the conference?" And of course I'm thinking, what am I going to say to this stranger? I don't know what conference she's talking about, and obviously I don't have a husband. So I just said no and went on to talk to my kids. And she's interacting with my kids, and so it's obvious I'm a mom. And I'm like, okay, I just don't want to deal with it right for right now. I just want to sit here and watch my kids. Well, a few moments later, Crystal came out and she got into the pool, and then this lady got into the pool, and this lady started talking to Crystal. And then I hear Crystal say, "Oh yeah, my wife, she's right over there," and points to me. And I just sort of sheepishly wave yep, that's me. So this woman swims over and she's like, hey, why didn't you tell me you were gay? Why didn't you tell me you had a wife? Like, I love gay people, right? Like, I love how people always have like, I had a friend in high school who was gay, or my aunt is gay. There's always, I know they're trying to be kind, but it's a little bit awkward, right? And so I, sort of just sheepishly was like, oh, I don't know why I didn't come out. But really, I did know why I didn't come out. I didn't feel like it. And that was enough of a reason that, like, I could be a therapist who specializes in this. I could be someone who speaks on the topic. I could be someone who covers herself in rainbows and drives a boat around the same exact lake. And at the same time, that there could be times where I don't feel like coming out. And there does not have to be judgment. There does not have to be a deeper meaning. There does not have to be any harshness. So I share this story in hopes that it can really free you up to that idea of, we all have a journey. It is not one straight journey of, if I'm out, I have to come out all the time. That you get to just be you wherever you're at in every single moment. Okay, so the next thing I'd like to do is I want to play a song for us. If you haven't checked out Tim Be Told, he is a really great artist, a Christian singer, and he came out, oh boy, I think just a few years ago. And so a lot of his songs are really meaningful as a queer Christian. And he sings about a lot of his process of being a gay Christian. So during the song, what I want you to just sort of like listen, close your eyes. You can, if your camera isn't turned off, feel free to turn off your camera if that helps you feel more comfortable. And I also would love for you to either think about it or just get out a piece of paper. And I want you to write for a few moments about what scares you about coming out. And just let the music move you and be with you. Okay.
Some call it blasphemy to disagree with what they say. Two choices you will find: to fall in line or fall away. God made the world one boy and girl, they do insist. The Bible says a boy can't love a boy, no, not like this. It's forbidden, so keep it hidden. To save my soul, I must resist. God is spoken, that way is broken. No, a boy can't love a boy like this. Calls me inside. She says it's time to tell the truth. I think you have a secret, so just speak it. I'm begging you. My dad is yelling, saying, tell me it isn't so. And then the room gets quiet. I don't deny it, and now they know. I'm done with lying, my mom is crying. It's not kept myself locked up till he walked up and smiled at me. The heart I had to hide, he broke inside and set it free. And I couldn't help it when he held me to his chest. A friend was not enough. I fell in love and made a mess. He had one eyes, I made up more lies to pretend that I was his. I let my guard down, I poured my heart out. He said I love you, but just not like this. He said I love you, but just not like this. Time is fading and I'm still waiting for some love and happiness. I made a promise, but to be honest, I just want someone to love like this. I just want someone to love like this. I just want someone to love like this.
That song gets me. That line, I love you, but just not like this. I don't know about you, but I have fallen in love with my best friend more than once, different best friends before I came out, and have had that exact conversation, which is so awkward and so painful, but really understandable when you don't have a place to actually go and date. It's of course you're going to fall in love with your best friends, right? So but that this thing that I wanted you to sort of reflect on, what scares you most about coming out. The reason why I wanted you to do that is incredibly important to be able to name, because sometimes when we don't name the specifics of something, it ends up actually feeling really huge, much huger than it needs to be. So when there is vagueness, there is an increase of anxiety and fear. But when there can be something specific, you can start to see specific steps to overcoming something. The other thing that I want to say about fear is that you can do your internal work, and sometimes we need someone to join us in this, but to actually realize that even though it feels like that fear fills up every crevice of your soul and body, you are actually separate from that fear. That fear is not all of you. There are lots and lots of other parts of you. So one helpful thing can be actually really identifying other things that you're experiencing, other parts of yourself, so that you can really realize that fear is only a part. So I wanted to share, whoops. Next slide. There we go. A bit more of my coming out story, the part of my coming out story that when I came out to my mom. My mom was, I would say, it sounds a little bit awkward, but like one of my best friends. We were incredibly close. She was who I would go to if I was sad or ask for advice. I felt just really, really close to her. And so we were on our actually first ever mother-daughter trip together. I was in my mid-20s, and I thought like, okay, this is going to be our first ever time, just us. And this would be a perfect place to tell her that I'm dating someone and that I'm gay. And so we had a great time together. And one of the last nights, we were sitting on our beds in the hotel room. And I said to her, Mom, there's something that I want to tell you about myself. I really want to be known by you. I want you to know all the parts of me, but I'm really scared that you're going to be upset. And I'm really scared that you are going to reject me. And I did not anticipate her response, but her response was, you know, sometimes it's best for a mom to not know everything about her daughter. And it was devastating. Here I was about to come out. Here I was telling my mom that I wanted her to know me. And her response was, I don't want to know you. I, of course, now looking back, know that she was just in her own journey. In fact, she probably doesn't even remember saying that. But at the time, it was incredibly painful. Well, it was a few months later that Crystal and I actually broke up, and I was so heartbroken that I called up my mom, and I did not care what she had to say. I didn't care if she didn't want to know, and I just called her up, bawling my eyes out, and I told her that I was brokenhearted and that Crystal and I had been together and that we had broken up. And so that's how I came out to my mom. And she had said, like, she felt like maybe God had been preparing her, which, maybe, who knows, maybe she just could intuit that I was spending every waking moment and constantly talking about this other girl, Crystal. But, my mom's process was, in the beginning, she said she loved me, and then it got harder. It got a lot harder. She began to get very angry. She would call me and read the Bible to me. And there became a real distance. And I think that was one of the most painful parts of that time, was that she went from being the person I would call for everything to the person that I really couldn't share much with. The distance in our relationship was such a huge loss. And I didn't know if it would ever get better. I remember one time she even came to visit me up in Seattle where I was living, and her and Crystal and I went out to dinner. So Crystal and I got back together after this breakup phone call. And my mom talked to us about my someday wedding to a man. And she was saying things like, oh, I wonder where, you and your husband will honeymoon. And I wonder where you and your husband will get married. And I mean, I was just sitting there like, are you freaking kidding me? This is insane. Like, she knows that we're together. So there were lots and lots of crazy, painful conversations like that. She eventually ended up becoming affirming. She actually also had asked me not to tell my dad. So part of me waiting so long to tell my dad was that my mom had been fearful that actually my coming out would give him a heart attack. And so that is a big reason why I waited so long to tell him. But in his affirming me and his love, that eventually actually really helped my mom come around. And now I'm pretty sure she is really glad that I'm gay. She loves my wife. She loves our kids. And it's just wild to remember these stories of her really being so angry and resisting the truth of this, when now she takes such joy in my life. I want to talk about just a couple nuts and bolts of coming out, or some strategies. And as I do that, if you haven't checked out Amber Cantorna's coming out book, it is, I think, the best book on coming out. She goes into all of these and more, and in more detail. Yeah, it's just like, it's such a good book. So check it out. The first is get financially independent. If you are financially dependent, it's okay. We all have been there, but it is very difficult to feel the freedom to come out when you're worried that you're going to not have a place to live, or you're worried your car is going to be taken away. It's okay to take the time you need to get your finances in order. That's a very valid thing to work on before telling your family that you're queer. Make sure that you have support. In my coming out process, I had a therapist, and I had 2 friends. That's it. 2 friends that knew, no one else in my life knew. And those 3 people, my therapist and my 2 best friends, they were the only way that I got through all of those years. And so finding one person, even if it is only a coach or a therapist or a spiritual director, having that one person that like once a week or once every couple of weeks that you can just be yourself and talk authentically and openly with, it is not a small thing. Number 3, tell the easiest person first. This is so intuitive, but sometimes we feel like we've got to face it. We've got to do the hard thing. Like as Christians, somehow we get this message that the hard thing is like the godly thing. I completely disagree with that. Tell the easiest person first. Who do you think is just going to say like, I love you and no big deal? Start there, because those people that you tell first, they're going to be your support and your cheerleaders as you move through your list of the harder people. Engage in self-care. And sometimes self-care can sound, I don't know, it's so overused that it can almost become meaningless. It can almost feel like, oh, I should take a bath or something very gentle like that. Self-care can look like all kinds of things. So don't put yourself in a box when you think about self-care. Let yourself just imagine what would feel good and kind today, and try things out. It can be anything from like taking a bath is a great idea, but it could be other things. It could be, I don't know, maybe you go buy a bunch of plates at a thrift store for 25 cents each, and then you go and you break them because you're so angry and you just break a bunch of plates, and that feels like self-care. Or maybe you drive your car to an empty space so that you can just let out all your cries without worrying about anyone hearing you. Or maybe going for a swim or playing a game or watching lots of comedy. Anything can be self-care. Join affirming groups. Nowadays, it's so great. Actually, this is one positive of COVID, is that so many groups that are usually just local, especially even LGBTQ like centers, have all the groups online now. And so doing a big search on any kind of group that you can join is a great idea. And then listen to other stories. Social media is amazing. This is not to have you compare yourself, but to just find other people who have gone before you as a place of encouragement, that they too have faced that unknown journey and that deep, deep fear, and they've gotten through it. Okie dokie. So some strategies for when you come out. Focus on your story and feelings. It can be really easy to not do this because it's vulnerable. It's vulnerable to share the depths of pain that you've been through and the amount of years that you prayed for God to take it away. All of those things are really vulnerable, but they're important to let your friends and family know, because even though it seems obvious that when you come out that they should obviously know that this has been a long journey for you, it's surprising how many friends and family don't really get that. And sometimes when they know more of your story, it can open their hearts a little bit more to you. I always like to say no one wins a debate, even the winner. When you debate, obviously there's going to be someone who is probably better at memorizing facts or better at arguing, and they're going to be the winner, right? But at the end of a debate, I don't know about you, it feels like our relationship has been impacted. So if a broken relationship is what ends up happening after a debate, then really there's no winner. And so in times of coming out, if someone tries to say like, well, what do you think about this scripture? And what do you think about that scripture? Or, I read this one book. You can let them know that those things are important and that you'd be happy to point them to other resources, places that believe the same as you, but that you aren't wanting to debate them. That perhaps maybe you could have a conversation about it, but that it would be better for them to read some of the resources or listen to the resources that you've listened to, and go from there. So that leads right into number 3, which is give them resources. It's so amazing that there are so many books and podcasts and YouTube videos. This can be helpful. And when you give them resources, here's another place to be vulnerable. And that is to let them know what it means to you to read or listen to these resources. That you're not just trying to change their mind, you're not trying to change their theology, you're trying to show them and let them get to know you and let them get to know your journey. That's why you're sharing these resources with them. So again, the last one is the biggest, and that is be vulnerable. Let your family try and see you as much as you're able and willing. I know I kind of said this before, but even with these strategies, even with Amber's book or all the resources in the world, we don't get to have the power to control our friends and family's response to us. And so if and when they respond in a painful way, I want you to free yourself up from that burden. It is not your fault. It is not that you should have done something different or better. It is a part of their journey. So that leads us right into talking about grief. Grief is so hard. It's so painful. Dr. Kubler-Ross is the one who first started studying grief, and she gave us some categories of grief. And some people have a couple others, but I have found these ones to be most helpful. So the importance of talking about grief is that in order for us to accept ourselves, we go through a grief process. And when we come out to our friends and family, they enter their own grief process. And so it's very complicated because we are having these 2 simultaneous grief processes going on, but it's likely that you're in a different stage as your parents or your friends. So you might be in the acceptance part of your grief when they're in the anger piece, right? So I remember one of these conversations I had with my mom. I was feeling really happy about Crystal and I, really happy about being gay. And I called her up and she just sounded so angry. I had never heard my mom's voice sound like this. And so I said to her, "You sound angry." And she just was like, "Yes, I'm angry." She sort of went off. And it was so hurtful and hard because I didn't realize that she was in grief. It just felt like, oh my gosh, now this is our relationship. This is the fullness of our relationship, rather than knowing, oh, this is just a part of her journey. So that is the importance in understanding these different parts of grief, is that rather than taking some of these painful conversations and experiences personal, you can know that they are in a part of their grief. So shock or denial. So these are pretty obvious. Oftentimes, this happens in the beginning of grief. So grief is not sort of this like chronological type thing. Once you get one stage done, it's over. It is much more of a spiral. And, but even though it is a spiral, often the shock and denial happens in the beginning. You know, if you get that phone call that someone has passed, usually the first thing we say is like, "No, what? That can't be true," right? And so sometimes that is the first response when we come out to people. My mom talking about my someday wedding to a man, that was denial. And so when you are experiencing these conversations with your friends and family, you can go through and actually try to name what part of grief they're in. Anger and guilt. Anger and guilt are kind of these 2 different sides. Sometimes if someone is stuck in guilt, it's because feeling angry is scary to them. And so even for you, if you start feeling so super guilty in your coming out, one thing that you can start to try and do is access your anger. Ask yourself if actually maybe you're angry about something, and that anger is going to help you get out of feeling guilty. Bargaining. So bargaining is if you've ever heard someone say like, oh my gosh, I knew, your parents saying like, I knew I shouldn't have put you in baseball with your brother, I knew I should have put you in the girls softball so you could be around other girls or something, or, we should have got you therapy when you were 7 and we realized something was wrong with you. Bargaining is this like, if this, then that. And our parents really like to try and understand what caused us to be queer, what brought this about. And so they try and backtrack it to see what happened and see if they can bargain their way out of this. That also is very painful, right? Because we are not a mistake. We didn't happen to become queer out of a painful experience. We were created this way beautifully. Depression, sadness, this of course is also so painful. It's so painful to feel that deep sadness, but it's incredibly important to allow yourself to cry when those tears come. And the whole reason why we will go through all of these very painful things is because eventually it leads to acceptance. And eventually we get to just live and be happy and healthy. And so sometimes this spiral goes on for quite a while. Like I said, it took my mom just over 5 years. She was in her spiral for almost 5.5 long years, going through all of these different stages at different times until she was able to come to a place of acceptance. And so as your family travels through their own grief process, name it for yourself. You don't have to name it for them. This is about you knowing where they're at in their own process. Let's see. Okay. So I want to end, and I'm hoping that we can open up the chat section of this. I wanted to let you know, if you want to contact me, info@thechristiancloset.org, or you can find me on Instagram at the lesbian therapist. I think the last thing before we go to the Q&A, and I want to give them a moment to get that up and open to everybody. And it might sound simple, but this, the idea that like you truly are not alone. I just looked a second ago that there are 60 people in this room. So even if there is no one else around you, I want you to remember that there were 60 people in this coming out workshop. There were 60 other people in the coming out process, joining you in trying to figure out how to do this, how to love themselves, how to do this incredibly courageous and bold thing and let themselves be known and understood by those around them. So reach out. You do not have to do this alone. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing so I can see the Q&A. Okay, so we've got some, and I'm going to just read these out loud, even though I think you guys can see them. So married to a man for 23 years, came out to him as lesbian during COVID, planning to divorce. When I came out publicly, I'm debating whether to just get it all out there at once, divorce and come out. Any thoughts on this? Oh, I love Q&A time, but also it's just like, these questions, how am I going to say, get into this quickly? First of all, thank you so much for sharing this. I meet with people all of the time who have a very similar journey. Your journey actually was almost mine. I almost married a man as well. This answer is incredibly personal to you. Okay, so some people divorce and come out at the same time, and for others, that is just too much. You have to really get in touch with what is going to, like, what is the max that you can handle. In my opinion, if it doesn't take you over an edge of anxiety and maybe depression to do both at the same time, I'm a rip the Band-Aid off kind of gal. But for a lot of people, they don't want people to associate the divorce with being gay. I think it can be a kind thing to show that actually this is not, it's not like you just hated your husband or he was a bad person, that there was this other thing going on. But even more than that, I hope that you have support, because that kind of journey can get really lonely. Okay. When I came out a trans woman, I'm going to lose my job as a pastor in a conservative denomination. Any advice on how to navigate that well, especially thinking of financial insecurity for my family? Long term, I believe I will find employment that aligns with my mission and purpose. But in the short term, I stand to lose almost everything. Yeah, thank you, Pastor. I also have met with people in this space, and the finances are just so real. And I think you're exactly right that you will, long term, you will find your way. I have journeyed with so many people that have found their way in the long game, but the short term, it is really hard. And so, just like I said in my in the breakout, take your time to figure that piece out. It is not small. So, I mean, I'm sure you're already thinking about these kinds of things, but try to pay off those credit cards. Try and save a couple months of employment. Is there any kind of training that actually your church would pay for that they think is going to be for your pastoralship that actually is going to help you get another job? These are all kinds of things. Or maybe there's a company that you want to volunteer with to start to get your name in there. It's a company that you eventually want to apply for a job. Get a strategy together to help you get employment, so that transition from being a pastor to your new job isn't too long. Okay. This person says, let's see. Thank you so much for your kindness and generosity. Really appreciate your talk today. Oh, I was wondering if you have advice for folks coming out later who want to date and might, like me, never have dated before. Dating is so exciting and so scary. I love talking with people about dating, probably because I'm married, and so I don't get to go out and exciting new dates anymore. But there is so much to it. Of course, have fun. I mean, the biggest thing is, be yourself. But another one is be open. I think a lot of us are so used to, when we grow up as Christians, saying like, so here's a line: I will only date people who are Christian, who maybe are virgins, or who are ministry. We have all of these really specific lines that we don't cross. But when it comes to dating as a gay person, it takes a little bit longer to get to know someone in those spaces of especially what they believe about God, because I know a lot of people who don't call themselves Christians, simply because they were so hurt by the church, right? And so you would miss out on those people who actually have a beautiful, full faith life. They have spiritual practices and a relationship to God that would be a great partnership with you, but they just don't call themselves Christians. So try and have a little bit of an open mind about that portion of like who you will date and who you won't date. It's also okay to go with like your gut of who you're attracted to. Another thing where as Christians, a lot of us are like, oh, well, I should be open if someone's just sort of nice. Niceness is awesome, but also like, if you don't want to make out with this person, you probably don't like them in that way. Like, let yourself experience attraction, let yourself feel desire for people. And you can follow your attraction. I know so many of us, for so many years, we had to shut that down. So allow that part of you to come out and become alive. So I hope that's helpful. Okay, let's see. One of the issues I've had when coming out is having to educate at the same time. Yeah, it's hard to come out as a non-binary if people don't understand gender. Yeah, it's like they are reading from a different dictionary. Ditto for asexuality. That's so true. That's so hard. I think there's not like a ton to be said about this, except for one way that you can educate is to let your friends and family know that it would be loving if they tried to educate themselves, that you would feel loved and supported. Or if there is someone else that you know that it's not as burdensome to educate your friends and family, asking them, hey, do you mind talking to so-and-so? They know a lot and they're willing to talk to you. But also taking lots of breaks, letting people know that you're not up for talking, and you can let them know when you might be ready to talk. It's okay to, just tell people that you need breaks. Okay. I hope let's see. They're kind of, okay. I'm concerned that my family will think I've been deceptive all those years. I'm 56 and very afraid to come out to my family, especially my father. Yeah, I think that is a hard part of coming out, is that feeling of betrayal that our friends and family can feel. They have this experience of like, oh my God, they start to go back like, what about that one time when we talked about you dating a man? Or what about that one time when you went on a date? Or what about Christmas last year when this happened? And they go back and they have memories of conversations and experiences with you, and they start to see it in a different way because now they have new information about you. So their experience is valid. Their experience of feeling a little bit hurt is valid, and that is part of their grieving process. But my advice would be for you to get support, because just as much as their process and feelings are valid, so are yours. And for you even to be here at this workshop is so amazing. After 56 years, you are here. That says to me there is something inside of you that is letting you know that you're ready, or else you would not be here. So you might actually have what you need, even if you don't feel like you do. Okay, let's see. I think my family may suspect I'm gay, but I don't think they want me to confirm it by me saying I'm gay. Curious about your thoughts. Yeah, this kind of reminds me of when my mom said, I don't think I need to know everything about you. You need to wait until you're ready. This is about you, right? And so even if they don't want you to confirm it, if you're ready and you want to, have your friends and family know that you are gay, then it's time for them to face that, right? So they actually are already in the beginning of their grief process of denial. And so essentially, when you come out, you're going to be pushing them out of denial into another stage of grief, which is really positive. We don't want people to get stuck in a stage. We want people to move through grief towards acceptance. So by you coming out, you get them into a different part of grief. Okay, I think I don't want to go over too much time, but I want to answer these questions. So I don't know how long we have. Nathan, if there's a way for you to Oh, thank you, Nathan. You said giving me a 5 or 10 minute notice. Awesome. Okay, I'm going to try to get through these. One of the issues I have had when coming out is having, oh, let's see, I read that one. I'm a therapist for college students. Yay, thank you for your work. I'm also queer. How do you acknowledge your identities, acknowledging your intersectionality, your role as a therapist? For example, most therapists do not tell anything about themselves at all. How do you find this balance? So this is one of the reasons why I love my work. Also, we are always looking to add therapists to the Christian Closet team. So reach out if you're a therapist, if you're a licensed therapist. So one thing I love in our work is that it is really important. Representation is super important. And so for us, we just let it be known from the very beginning. We put it on our social media, we put it on our website. So if you have a website, it's something you could add to your bio. The other thing is getting a balance of self-disclosure as a therapist when it's appropriate. You can just sort of mention it in some of your self-disclosure when you're giving your patient maybe an example of something that you went through. So I'd be happy to talk more about that in a conversation if you want to reach out to me personally. Okay. Hi, Candice, just a shout out. Oh my gosh, MBI class of 81 here. Oh, a big fan of Matt Nightingale. I found him this past year. Awesome. Hi, Gordon. Thanks for saying hi. So I went to the Moody Bible Institute for my undergrad. Very conservative place to realize you're gay. And Matt Nightingale does spiritual direction with us at the Christian Closet. So if you're ever interested in spiritual direction, he also has a free Monday night class that's like a spiritual contemplation type experience. It's really cool. Okay, thoughts on the second time coming out as trans. I was pushed back into the closet after coming out to non-affirming family. It's a little bit hard without knowing more details, but let's see, second time. Yeah, it's really hard to say much, except for part of your coming out needs to be lots of love and grace towards yourself. I could imagine that there would be lots of shame in going back into the closet. I could imagine that there would be some embarrassment. And so for you to be able to really be super gentle with yourself and remember that there was a really good reason why you went back into the closet. And even being able to share that in your new coming out story, like, hey, here's why I went back into the closet, and I really need your extra love and support because of that. Okay, I think I have 2 more, so I think I can get them in. How to navigate, find the balance between managing the mental weight of being closeted, thankfully not fully, I'm out to most of my close friends and siblings, and not being able to be out to your parents because of financial assistance, helping with college. I'm leaning toward just wanting to come out because I'm no longer living at home and I'm working full time. That's fantastic. But my parents want me to go back to school once the pandemic lets up, and they'll be helping me again. I don't know exactly how they'll react. Yeah, this is a really good question. And I think like the mental weight, that's a great description. When I was closeted, I mean, I felt like I experienced so many side effects of that weight. I was depressed. I was anxious. I probably drank more than I should. I probably ate more than I should. Sleeping was all over the place. Like, it's very easy to have symptoms of that weight of coming out. I isolated myself. I lost a lot of friendships because of that isolating, but it sounds like you're out to a lot of your friends, which is amazing. You probably already know this, but there is not one right or wrong way to do this. It's really understandable if you want to wait because your family is going to help you with college. You should not have to worry about not getting to go to college because your parents take away their financial support. Okay, that is not being a bad, dishonest person. You should be able to enjoy that time, enjoy the support of the people who do know. And soon you will be out of college, right? There will be an ending to that time. And so there will be plenty of time to come out to your family or your parents. So remember, that's one thing I forgot to say. Your life is going to be so much bigger than just now. Oftentimes it feels like our life is just now, but oh my God, our lives are so big and wide. Someday all of these questions will just be memories. Okay, let's see. We'll actually have to hard stop in 2 minutes. Okay, hard stop, no problem. Thank you, Nathan. And thank you, Phil. Nathan's saying there's been a couple questions that have been bumped. Okay, so how could you approach coming out to close people? Guys, I'm so sorry. What I'll try to do is I'll try to do some stories today on my Instagram page with the questions I didn't get to, or you can reach out to me via email. So check out my Instagram, lesbian therapist, my stories. I will respond to these questions I didn't get to. Thank you for being here. I hope next year I'll be able to see all of you face to face and you can come give me a hug and let me know that you were in this workshop. Okay. Bye, everybody.